Fresh Air's Emery Baldonado.
Like most professional musicians, when lockdown started, Jeff Tweedy found himself at home. A lot. That's quite a difference from the constant touring he was doing for most of his decades-long career. So he wrote and published a new book about songwriting called How to Write One Song. He also recorded and released a new album, Love is the King, with the help of his two sons. Spencer, who's 25, played drums, and Sammy, who just turned 21, provided background vocals. Yet perhaps the best way Jeff Tweedy is connecting with fans is through something called The Tweedy Show. Back in March, Jeff's wife, Susie Miller, started filming Jeff and his sons performing in their house. At first, the Tweedies did an Instagram show every night. You might hear a Wilco song or a cover version of songs by people like Neil Young, Pavement, The Band, or The Beatles. After some breaks and a COVID scare over Thanksgiving, they still perform 4 nights a week. They may have been playing music together, laughing, poking fun, and telling stories, even if the iPhone wasn't rolling, but the show lets fans become part of it. Hanging out with the Tweedies has been one of my favorite ways of getting through this year. We'll talk about the show in a bit, but first, let's start with a track from the album, Love is the King. It's called Gwendolyn.
I don't think I can take another day. Oh, I don't know how I could ever say I'm okay being so far away. Oh, I don't think I can take another day. Gwendolyn, when she starts to speak, to the counting police with a plastic cup between her teeth. The sun beating down like a big trombone. That's right when I start missing home. She holds my hand between her knees. It's like a dream, I never know what it means. I only know I'm feeling alone. That's right when I start missing home.
That's Gwendolyn off the new album, Love is the King. Jeff Tweedy, welcome back to Fresh Air.
Thanks for having me back.
Now, since quarantine started, you and your family have been doing a live Instagram show called The Tweedy Show, or you call it The Tweedy Show. Can you describe it for people who haven't seen it?
It's just basically like inviting people over to our house to hang out with us in our living room and just hang out with a family that I think enjoys spending time with each other and can definitely get on each other's nerves and do a little bit of bickering and sniping, and at the same time I think it's a warm atmosphere to share with everybody, and I think that it felt so intimate to us right away. I mean, the first episode I'm in the bathtub, so I think that's part of the reason we started calling the people that would come to watch it our clients as opposed to fans, because I think there was some impulse to keep some professional distance. Sometimes we do a bunch of songs, sometimes we only do a few, but for the most part we just try and push the outside world away a little bit. We don't really dwell upon the things that are happening in the news or stuff like that very much, because for a lot of reasons I don't think people should come to us for commentary on those things. I think a lot of people are feeling the same things, and what we need more of is connection and just some ritual of just being reminded that there are normal moments and things like that. It's just really, really intimate feeling thing, but it's not serious.
Now, watching the show, one of the joys of it is how much you all enjoy spending time together, and I kind of feel like that's family goals. You know, I wish I could get my family to get along like that and want to spend that much time with me.
The shows have resulted in some like just knockdown, drag-out fights, though. I mean, we're on our best behavior with this show.
So otherwise, like as soon as the camera is off, you guys are not talking or fighting?
Well, no, you know what? I mean, it's good. What it has done is sometimes it dislodges some resentment from something that happened weeks ago, and it's actually kind of good family therapy because you have this camera there and you're kind of trying not to show some of these tensions. Then you have to let them out when the camera goes off, and it's resulted in a lot of, I think, conflict resolution. And I don't want to paint a picture like our family has a lot of issues that we really need to work through. I think we do sincerely love being together and having a good, we do have a good time together, but every family gets on each other's nerves, and you'd be really weird if you didn't, I think. But not every family gets good at figuring that stuff out, and sometimes maybe, I guess you could go your whole life and you don't need to figure it out, but I tend to think it's probably strengthening when you can, say, hey, you're like, I know you're just my big brother telling me what to do, but when, you do that, it like makes me look like I'm incapable, or, like just little, I don't know, philosophical things about birth order and stuff like that. It's amazing.
There's this review of the Tweety Show in the New Yorker, and one of the things the reviewer said, I appreciate it because I think, you guys seem to be enjoying each other so much and playing music together. And, as the reviewer pointed out, it's like you guys have had hard times, and recently, you had to deal with your wife, Susie Miller's cancer diagnosis. You also struggled with addiction, and, watching you guys all together, it's just very kind of, heartwarming and sweet. And one of the things you say in your book about the time when Susie was sick was that playing music together with your kids was a way of holding each other without hugging all the time. And I thought that was so sad and sweet. Like this, making music was something that you could do when there was nothing else to do.
That's true. And there's also, I don't know of any activity as healing as playing music. I don't know what else there is to do I think maybe exercise helps for a lot of people when they're really suffering psychologically, really sad, really struggling. Anything that kind of gets you out of your head and into your body is probably really good for you. But music doesn't quite get you out of your head. It just makes everything lighter. And I'm not the first person to say this, obviously. It's just a real consolation, and it always has been, even before I could play music. I really think that I was a lonely kid, and that music was a real consolation to me, and it developed that bond with me that formed that deep need and connection, or maybe just made me aware of how powerful that just listening to music can be as far as like just healing yourself and making yourself a little bit more whole when you feel broken. And it's invariable in a way. A lot of times I don't expect it to work because I feel like things are so bad and I feel so sad that I don't think it's going to work. And the struggle then is to actually pick up the guitar or to put something on to listen to. And once you get over that hurdle, it works. And I just have a lot of evidence over a lot of years now that that's a constant and a pretty reliable thing. That's really the most reliable thing I can think of in the world.
My guest is Jeff Tweedy. He has a new book called How to Write One Song and a new album called Love is the King. More after a break. This is Fresh Air.
That's next on KCUR 89.3 NPR in Kansas City. And in an upcoming special, we're going to meet one couple who just shrugged when a few letters were delivered to their apartment addressed to Santa. Plus, what exactly is the nog in eggnog? We'll learn the history of one of the most contentious seasonal drinks. It's all on podcast playlist Christmas morning at 9 on KCUR 89.3.
In 2020, KCUR reported on efforts to provide COVID-19 testing in the urban core.
And
hopefully pave a pipeline to encourage people to get the vaccine as well.
Support the news of 2021 by making a donation today at kcur.org/2021.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Capital One. Capital One's banking app lets people manage their money anytime, anywhere. Capital One. This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Capital One NA. And from Simon & Schuster's Tiller Press, publisher of So to Speak, 11,000 Expressions That'll Knock Your Socks Off, by Shirley and Harold Kobliner, a book that turns common phrases into word games. So to Speak is available now.
This is Fresh Air. My guest is musician and Wilco frontman Jeff Tweedy. He has a new book about songwriting called How to Write One Song. And he has a new album he recorded with the help of his sons, Spencer and Sammy. It's called Love is the King. Now, you wrote that your dad would have a favorite song that he would listen to over and over, like for weeks, to the exclusion of any other songs. Can you talk about what some of those songs were, and do you think you learned anything from that?
I mean, I must have learned something from it. I mean, you certainly get to know a song pretty well when your dad plays it 50 times a night, you know, and you start to hear different things each time, I think, probably. You tend to focus on different things just to keep your sanity. But, I mean, a lot of times it would just be, he's a real lyrics guy, so it would be I Love by Tom T. Hall, you know, I love little baby ducks, you know, like something like that, which has some really amazing lines in it. And Mac Davis, It's Hard to Be Humble When You're Perfect in Every Way. Let's see, Southern Nights, I think you just love the sound of that one. It was really unpleasant and frustrating as a family, to be honest. My dad, it was, and I think my dad went through his entire life with a lot of the same mood disorders that I've had, maybe but in an undiagnosed state and clumsily medicated with light beer. And so I think that you could add the repetition of the songs that he would fall in love with as some part of a coping strategy that involved a routine, you know. I could psychoanalyze it even more if you want me to, but I think that there's, something pathological about it. And it was loud. He wouldn't listen to things quiet either. It was loud and dominant in the entire house. And I could probably handle it a lot more than my mom could. The 600th time that It's Hard to Be Humble was, getting spun on the turntable. My mom was probably, part of the reason she probably had a fairly short life.
I know for me, one of the things I'm worried about is, I would love to pass creativity on to my children, or foster it in them, but I'm a little bit afraid of passing on what's bad about me to them, whether that's anxiety or, darkness tendencies or, just, I don't know. So you just talked about how your dad had perhaps undiagnosed mood disorders, and you talked about your mood disorders and addiction, and I'm just wondering if you're worried about, I can't remember, you called it the Tweety curse. I can't remember in the book what you call it, but a Tweety predilection to these kinds of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, alcoholism runs in my family for many generations, and it's certainly genetic and something to be concerned about. On top of that, I think that there's some really strong correlation between some mood disorders and our tendency to have an addiction of some sort. They seem to be related. So as a parent, there's a lot of concern that you're passing along those things. I think that the main thing that will be different for them if those are, struggles that they encounter in their life. The difference between me and them would be that I only knew the struggle. I didn't know how to avoid it. but I also I never had any evidence or witness to someone getting better, or even acknowledging it, as a problem, So, I mean, it was obviously a problem for my family, and, it caused a lot of heartache and a lot of misery. But the person themselves that was going through it, in most cases, was pretty firmly in their denial of it being a problem. So, what my children have witnessed, on the other hand, is someone getting help and someone admitting that there's a problem, and I guess modeling some behavior of vulnerability, struggle, and endurance, and ultimately some ability to transcend that suffering that they witnessed. And so that gives me some comfort to know that is in there as firmly as anything else that might be inside them, and how they are wired to handle the world.
My guest is Jeff Tweedy. He has a new book called How to Write One Song and a new album called Love is the King. More after a break. This is Fresh Air.
And this is KCUR 89.3 NPR in Kansas City. I'm Lori Arbor. Good evening. It is 7:47, and we are 13 minutes away from our rebroadcast of KCUR's Up to Date, a conversation with Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas about the year this city has seen, and a look ahead to 2021. That's right after Fresh Air at 8 o'clock. Support for KCUR comes from the National World War I Museum and Memorial, offering a place for COVID-safe holiday family outings with plenty of room in the galleries to socially distance, featuring the French fashion exhibition Silk and Steel, and more. Learn more at theworldwar.org.
News breaks throughout the day. Catch up on the latest with in-depth reporting, analysis, and commentary from All Things Considered. Make your smart speaker make you smarter. And tell your Amazon Echo, Google Home, or Apple HomePod to play KCUR.
This is Fresh Air. My guest is musician and Wilco frontman Jeff Tweedy. He has a new album he recorded with the help of his sons, Spencer and Sammy. It's called Love is the King. Now, the new book is about songwriting, but it's really about, valuing a creative outlet, like carving out time to do something creative. And, I gather it's because, it's been so important to you, but you have this story about someone who you were in the rehab facility with, who was very unresponsive, and when this opportunity for a small creative outlet really helped her. I was wondering if you could tell that story.
Yeah, I was in a dual diagnosis facility, primarily being treated for addiction, but for the first time in my life really being treated seriously for my depression and anxiety as well. And I was in, it was a city hospital, and it was not full of investment bankers and car salesmen getting over their coke addictions. It was some really seriously damaged people that had maybe maybe been the first time they lived inside a building for a long time. A lot of homeless people and some really hurt people. And this woman who was a heroin addict, maybe in her 60s, and was catatonic for most of the time, the first week or so that I was in the hospital with her, in group therapy sessions. She would never say anything, and at one point we were taken to some art therapy class, and she was given a pencil and asked to draw a self-portrait. And she said it was the first time she'd held a pencil in 20 years or something. And she, I mean, it might be one of the only true miracles I've witnessed in my life, because it really felt miraculous to watch somebody become completely human again in such a short period of time. She drew a pretty rudimentary drawing of herself. It was kind of charming, outsider art looking primitive thing, but she was smiling, and she was talking, and she actually was able to name what it was that had made her, had unburdened her, and it was that she felt like she had made something that wasn't there, and that then, and in her words, that puts her closer to God than she was. And a lot of that doesn't make sense to me in terms of my belief system, but the idea of putting yourself closer to creation puts you in the realm of something godlike. Absolutely makes sense to me.
Did you work on music when you were there?
No, because I mean, I wasn't in a hospital where they wanted any guitar strings around.
Of course.
Yeah.
How was it in your mind? Were you?
No, I think one day they let me in a recreation area that one of the counselors had brought a guitar, and they let me strum it for a little while. But no, not in the hospital. After the hospital, when I spent some time in a halfway house, I was able to play guitar again, and that was, it was really nice to know that I still could.
And in your memoir, you write about that time. And I wonder if it was strange to sort of be working out what you were working out, but at the same time, I think Ghost is Born was starting to be promoted, and you say your photo was on bus shelters. Was that kind of a weird thing to be working out something for yourself, but sort of have this other thing kind of out in the world?
It was a little bit after I was out of the woods. I mean, I was out of the hospital and I was back home, and I'd spent a little bit of time in a transitional facility. But yeah, it definitely was all gearing up because it would look like I was going to make it, and but yeah, the local weekly paper had me on the cover, and that was maybe a week or so after I left the transitional facility. And one of the things I thought about while, seeing that everywhere I went was if any of the guys that I was hanging out with in the laundry room were going to stumble across this picture of me and think, wow, he really made a pretty quick rebound or something. I don't think nobody had any awareness at all that I was from a band that was, putting records out and visible in the outside world or anything.
Was it hard to perform the songs from A Ghost is Born right after, because those were songs that were born of the time right before you went into the facility? Sort of the songs that you write at a time where you're sort of in a bad place.
No, actually, I think that was one of that's one of the lessons I learned. I think from that whole experience is it kind of led me to my belief that the part of me that writes songs, the part of me that engages in a creative act is way ahead of me is usually the best part of me, and that was really I was really worried about it. And then when I started singing those songs, they started making more sense somehow in the context of having gotten healthier than they would have to me. Actually, it maybe made more sense to me than the way they felt to me going down in the studio. In a lot of cases, I felt like they were ahead of me, and they were striving towards something, like a better idea of who I could be in a lot of cases.
Well, Jeff Tweedy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jeff Tweedy spoke with Fresh Air's Anne-Marie Baldonado. You can find The Tweedy Show most nights on Susie Miller's Instagram feed, Stuff in Our House. Jeff Tweedy's new book is called How to Write One Song, and his new album is called Love is the King. Tomorrow on Fresh Air, we'll look back at this crazy year in movies and TV, a year with theaters mostly closed and so many productions shut down. I'll talk with our TV critic David Bianculli and our film critic Justin Chang. They'll also tell us what's on their 10 best lists. I hope you'll join us.